Today's guest is Zena Contreras, who is a seasoned career coach and corporate recruiting expert with a rich tapestry of experience spanning over 2 decades. With an impressive track record of collaborating with industry giants such as CNN, CBS Viacom, and the Walt Disney Company, Zena brings a wealth of insider insights to the world of professional development. So, Zena, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so very much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to dive into all of this stuff with you. So, why don't you just kind of give us a little bit of context on kind of who you are beyond the bio and how you got to doing what you're doing?
Absolutely. So, I've been in corporate recruiting for 25 years, but I've also been a life coach and really interested in the aspect of human beings and human nature. So, recruiting actually, from that standpoint, allows me to look at their success versus the human resources, employee relations, and sort of babysitting the problem. So I really, really like looking at the end result and then weaving the life coaching in with being able to guide people and professionally package themselves. So recently, I left CNN about a year and a half ago when I really struggled with one particular search for one of their co-anchors that's no longer there. And the job was open for 11 months and there were well over several thousand people in the applicant pool, and no one would fit the bill. So I really looked at the candidate process and like how deflating is it from the aspect of I put my best foot forward, I've gone to the interview, I've met the whole team, and then crickets, right? They don't get an email, and maybe months down the road, they get a thank you, but no thank you. And I really started to lean into that. Like, I believe that I can help these people better package, position, and also listen to the triggers that are discussed in the interview process that could help them. So, such as you're going to help me today.
Awesome. Well, I mean, listen, I know it's always funner on like this side of the table, so to speak. So I applaud you for diving into the deep end and basically allowing yourself to show up in this way. So yeah, 100%. I'm always a fan when people walk their own talk. And even on the note, just with regards to like what you do, I think it's really cool to marry and like overlap things that are seemingly like unrelated, like you say, life coaching and recruiting. But it's kind of like it's the people business, right? Like at least that's how I'm
Right.
interpreting what you're saying, where of course all of these factors are going to play. Of course, somebody's mentality is going to come into play when they have to be judged for this role and like what does that mean and like how do you put your best foot forward, how do you own it, etc. So yeah, anything else you want to add to that? But that's just kind of what I heard what while you were speaking.
Great.
Perfect.
That's
Okay.
exactly what it is.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad we're on the same page then as well. Okay. Perfect. So, with regards to where you're at now, I know kind of off air when you applied to be on the show, you were talking about, I mean, ironically, very similar, or not ironically, very similar things were like, okay, you're taking ownership of like the value that you bring to the table. Okay. So the authority around that, conveying that. So tell me a little bit more about that particular issue for you.
So obviously, I work for some great companies and there's name recognition within those companies. However, unless you have interacted with me from a recruiting standpoint, you may not be aware of what I can do to help you. And so, what I think is happening in the job market is everyone is looking for a job sort of status quo, what they've done in the traditional ways, apply online, apply online, apply online, and then cross their fingers and hope that they can be seen. I actually offer tremendous insight and wisdom from a corporate standpoint and understanding fully that hiring process. But I also know, because of my experience with hiring leaders, what they're actually looking for that's not in the job description. So trying to convey that to job seekers who may think, I'm unemployed. I don't have the money to pay you. I don't see the value. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing in a fragmented economy. And I watched CNN this morning and they were saying all these great things. And I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your numbers because that's not our reality. I just paid $6.17 for a head of cabbage. Where are these numbers that you're getting? So I get it that these are year-end numbers, and I just need to come across as the authority in my marketing and in my positioning, to be able to express that to potential clients. Just a side note, I am an extreme introvert. So one of the reasons why I became a recruiter was to get me out of that, at least from a professional standpoint. But I am an extreme introvert
Got it. And why do you think being an introvert hinders you for this goal?
because I don't really like getting on camera. I don't really like sharing my story. It's uncomfortable for me.
Got it. Okay. So let's just dive a bit deeper into that. So I don't like getting on camera. I don't like sharing my story. There's discomfort essentially around visibility. Okay. So what is your like if you dig deeper beyond that, what is uncomfortable about being visible when you're obviously a veteran at what you do?
I think I speak well. So I've compartmentalized a lot of things like business is business, and I have hit certain levels of success. But but to then now incorporate a little bit about me that draws people in to want to work with me, the person is something where I've really struggled with, because business was business and this is me personal, and this is Zena from a spiritual life coaching aspect. So it's actually blending those in today's times that really make you come across as very authentic versus someone who's just giving facts and figures and information and sort of data dumping. I want to lean into more of the personality side so that I could attract like-minded people who need my help and assistance.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then there's kind of like this inner battle between, so there's this spiritual life coach side of me, and then there's this recruiter side of me, and they seem to be at odds because one is very facts and figures, the other one's very, I mean, however you want to say it, so it's subjective or just different. And those two seem to be at odds with each other in terms of how I want to show up. Like, is that accurate for you or no?
I would say so.
Okay,
I
perfect.
would like
So
to align them.
you'd like to line them. Okay, perfect. So the desire is there. So what do you think is going to happen if you align them?
I believe that I will appear to a greater audience. So let me go back to your earlier question because this just popped into mind.
Mhm.
Um, Part of my struggle in keeping this persona, this professional persona, is that I didn't graduate high school, and I didn't go to college. Ironically, I'm going to Ivy League schools. I'm recruiting from these places. I'm having that level of conversation. So now, as a career coach, I'm doing this and I'm using my name. I'm not using CNN. I'm not using CBS. I can't stand behind the brand. I am the brand. And so that exposure is a little intimidating. Like, wow, I don't know whether I'm going to be rejected for it, which I haven't. I have not. But it's just my internal fear. So I just thought I'd be transparent.
Awesome. And I appreciate that because that's how you get to the root of things. So right now, the fear is really I'm going to be judged because of my history. So basically, there's a part of you that's playing small to basically optimize to not be judged versus be effective and heard by the people that need you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So is that like a new realization or is that something that you were aware of before?
No, it's always been underlying, but I've kept it underneath the rug and vacuumed on top of the rug.
Got it. So you were aware of it, but you weren't really looking at it or wanting to face it.
nor did I really think that it was that much of a factor because I was leaning into the brands, right? So when
Hmm.
you have this large brand recognition, I could go to Starbucks and say, "Hey, I work for CBS," and people would be impressed. But now I'm saying, "Hey, I'm a career coach, independent,
Right.
no names."
Right. So now the laurels need to rest on you.
Right.
Okay. Got it. So why do you think your history is not enough to justify all that?
There I haven't made the bridge between my history and the totality of who I am, right?
Hmm.
In my mind, because I've separated those or segmented those for so long, I'm trying to bridge those together.
Okay. So how are you trying to bridge them together?
Um, Definitely by understanding who I am and what I bring to the table. And one is just really appreciating my growth and dimensions that I have gone to expand. Even being able to get a job with CNN without a degree or ABC. I mean, our receptionist at Disney had master's degrees. So here I would walk in a different, in a different capacity. So really not beating myself up for that, but embracing that and actually appreciating that.
Got it. So intellectually, you're very well aware of like objectively speaking, I don't need to worry about this. Like this is something that I've overcome. Clearly, I'm 20 years into this. I've worked with these people. It wasn't a fluke. I did it again and again. I just happen to be independent now. So objectively, it's like I know the answer, but it seems to me that really emotionally you don't buy that. Like, is that accurate for you?
Sure. So, going a little deeper, my upbringing wasn't one where you bragged and boast about these things. And my culture, being of a diverse persuasion, wasn't something where being very honest, the females in the family, took that position to go outside of traditions or go outside of the norms. So, we had very domestic values, and my values and what I strived for were not domestic in terms of scope. I really wanted to see what the world offered, what these different companies offered. So I guess I was someone who went against the grain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it does go down deep in terms of upbringing and the philosophies around me being different for wanting different and striving to be different. And so I'm really doing the work to erase that and give value where value is needed.
Good. And I mean, the only way you could have gotten to where you're getting is by doing the work to overcome those things. So I think it's definitely relevant, the history which you bring to this, because that definitely is going to be a contributing factor to the patterns that you're experiencing. And there seems to be like a element of like black sheep, right? Because I went against the grain on all of these expectations. There's like an element of like being the black sheep that's going against the grain. Like, is that
Right.
accurate for you? It is. Okay, perfect. So now it's like you got like I'm the black sheep. I'm on my own. I've lost the recognition of like the thing that gave me clout or gave me some sort of authority or credibility. So now I'm the lone wolf, like black sheep,
Right.
right? Okay. So if that feels accurate to you, do you really think having had all of this reflected back to you, like, do you really think this is okay, well, how's my messaging and how am I conveying my value problem? Or is it more that playing small invisibility problem?
Definitely playing small invisibility.
Okay. Yes, I would definitely agree because even with the perfect messaging, you're always going to sabotage it in some way when there's a part of you that doesn't want to buy it because it's fearful of the judgment that's going to come from, the rejection that's going to
Right.
come from you owning it. So, yeah.
And you bring up a very good point. And so anyone that knows me, that talks to me, knows that I'm very transparent. The one thing that playing small does is it keeps you from judgment from those people that put those labels, those titles, and those brands on you with their whatever it was through the cycle of growing up, or your family, or your lineage. And so you sabotage yourself even more because you don't play to those levels, because you don't want that judgment. You've already experienced it, a certain saturation of it, right? And you know what that feels like. So you don't want to go like, ooh, if I really jump into that seven-figure income, what is that going to look like?
Hmm. So there's a fear of success now in there as well, right? And who is judging those pieces right now?
I've shaved a lot of people out of my life, so I wouldn't say that who's judging. I would say what I'm wrestling with is the wounds of that, the unspoken truth,
Hmm.
and healing some of that. A lot of times, such as I said, we sweep things under the carpet and we never look at it again. So it's just a blister that never heals, right? And
Hmm.
so that's what it is. It's not, I would say right now, it doesn't matter to me who's looking at that or who's judging that. Is I am in the process of healing that from a place of I'm okay if it's a scar, but I need to move forward.
Right. And that's in accordance to the woundings that kind of got you here. That's what you're
Right,
referring to. Okay.
right, right.
So yes, I think that's a great perspective and reflective of someone who's committed to, eliminating these patterns. So I'm all for that. And a part of how we got here was basically you saying, well, there's a fear of failure here because of the judgment I will receive when I get to that six-figure level. Okay. Right now, in this moment, or when you are about to make these decisions to not play small, who's actually judging you in that moment?
So to me, that would be the fear of unknown. Like I don't know who would
Correct. So
be.
fear of unknown.
Right.
And in the moment, is it another person that's making the judgment to trigger that fear, or is it yourself?
Myself.
Right. And the reason that I was kept poking and prodding into that same point is right now you're essentially prejudging, right? It's like I have this fear of success, fear of playing really big, justified, cool, get why the origins are there, and I'm prejudging on behalf of the people that I think are going to judge me when I get there, which then justifies you playing small,
Absolutely.
right? So I share that with you to allow you to take some of the power back,
Mm,
because if you're the one that's judging you right now, and your brain is just projecting other people on that judgment, but in that moment where you hesitate, where you don't play big, where you shrink, where you dilute your messaging, that's the moment that you are the one that's actually judging you. Because if
right.
you came at this as like, I stepped into my magnificence and I went all out and I, spoke loudly and played big, and then I got ostracized by X, Y, and Z person, I'd be like, okay, well, that's a different issue to navigate. But right now, we haven't even gotten there yet because you're prejudging
Right.
there. So what's
And
landing for you
so
with that?
the awareness of that really is very empowering for me. Having that spoken back to me, and looking at it from that perspective. Uh, I am a very courageous person. I take risks. I don't have a problem with going, trying out for the baseball team and knowing that I can't go up to bat, right? But I'll try. So when you framed it that way, that um, it was, eye awakening, but also I felt empowered because now I know how to move Xena out of the way, right? I've been doing that all my life.
Hmm.
So that is liberating and empowering. Yes, thank you.
Good. You're very welcome. So it kind of comes down to like right now, at least from this conversation, there's kind of like four main, I call them leadership limits. So like patterns of thoughts and emotions that basically keep us from the things that we want. Okay. So like they stunt our leadership to get the things that we want, or to utilize our natural abilities to get the things that we want. So fear of success for you is one of them, right? So this whole judgment thing of what's going to happen when I get to seven figures, visibility. So I don't want to authentically be seen, playing my magnificence, etc. Right. And
Yes,
stemming from that is playing small, and this idea of prejudging, right?
right.
Like those are like the four main leadership limits and patterns that are at the root of where you're stuck. So before I go on, like, does that resonate with you?
Totally resonates with me.
Okay, perfect. So what we want to do now is want to zoom out and look at, okay, well, how is this tangibly appearing inside of your business? How is it rippling into problems inside of your business? So just globally speaking, what's your first gut reaction to that question?
So the brand message, maybe the brand message is not relatable because it's all facts and figures, and it does not touch to the pain points that people might be experiencing so that they can resonate with the message. Um, I'm not sharing who I am and the experience, and how I've gotten to this point, how I've made the leap from, recruiter to now career coach, and the passion that I have behind that. Um, so not wanting to do videos and not wanting to be
Mhm.
on camera, and do the videos in social media, wanting to still be behind the facts and figures and the message.
Yeah, because that's
Um,
safe, right? Like it's somebody has a problem with that, they're judging the facts and figures. They're not judging me.
right,
Yeah. Okay. So in that instance, right? So I'm not really creating a relatable brand message because I'm hiding behind the facts and figures. I'm not allowing myself to touch the pain points of the people that need to hear me, right? I'm not sharing my own personal story, my own experience, like that relatability of why people would want me for this. Okay.
right.
And something not wanting to do videos. So when I hear this, yes, this does affect your business, but what I'm actually seeing is this is actually not allowing you to be seen by the people that need you most. Like it's actually hurting them more than it's hurting you in an indirect way. So does that resonate with you?
That does.
Okay. So in what way?
So I always think that I'm very good at helping people, but when you frame it that way, that there are people beyond my sphere of where I'm looking or where I'm trying to build relationships to get clients. There are people beyond that who need my gifts, talents, and abilities and experience to help them to get to the next level. Um, First of all, that makes me feel a little bit bad that I have played small, right? And now being a service oriented person, I I I want, so I can lift the veil even though it's scary to me. But framing it that way, I would be willing to lift the veil to help those people because what I know is I have value. That I know.
Yeah.
Confidently, I know that I have value.
Yeah. Well, and this isn't really a discussion about your competency in the work. This is about, like you said, it's the fear of success, the visibility, the playing small, and the prejudging. It is now that the credibility of those brands behind me is gone. How do I now bring the competency out into the world so the people that need me actually resonate and I matter to them, right? So
Right.
the first people that affect is like the ones that aren't getting placed in their dream role because you're playing small. Like that's one ripple effect that we don't think about when stuff like this happens. Okay.
Right.
So if we now zoom in or look at the other ripple effects of that, and you put the lens on like your actual business, so not being seen, not being the first choice for the people that need you, how is that affecting your profits?
Oh, it's affecting my profits tremendously. I mean, I think about even LinkedIn. So I have a strong LinkedIn presence, but because most people have seen me as a contract recruiter or an executive recruiter, which paid me an hourly wage, right, which I could bank upon and feel some sort of stability. I don't broadcast that I am a career coach because just just in case this thing doesn't work out, I can always go back to corporate recruiting. And so I keep that LinkedIn profile without sharing that, which would appeal to the mass audience, which would appeal to those people who look at my profile and are looking for help.
Perfect. Yeah. So I mean, now that's the overlap between, okay, well, I am known in one way and I'm getting paid in one way, totally alienating, not even alienating, but just like people just don't know what they don't know because they can't see it. And that's a huge gap in terms of what you might actually be getting paid. Like that's what I'm hearing as well.
Right.
So, I mean, you don't obviously have to go into like number specifics, but percentage wise, like how much profit do you think you're losing on just not making that transition, not owning that visibility?
Realistically, my mind tells me, which is really kind of sad, and probably 100 to 2, maybe 300,000, maybe more, because of the capacity in which I've worked with people. So there are some strong leaders. So just, you know, uh, uh, just with a vertical business and getting, coaching clients one-offs, right? But being part of a larger organization where a leader could say, you know what, we're downsizing and Zena's the person that could help you. So there could be different layers and levels completely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, I know this isn't about me, but this is just like as a tangent. One of the first co-ops I had in school was actually for like a higher end recruiting company. So I know the contract, like sizes, like one contract, like how much that could be worth, especially if you're independent. So I also applaud you for not like diving into, yeah, this could essentially be worth 100 to 300K a year for me, which is absolutely realistic given the caliber of people you'd be looking to recruit. So that's totally reasonable for me, even in the short stint I had like in your world. Um, and for someone that has a visibility fear or a visibility block, for you to like go into it and actually talk about that openly, I just want to acknowledge you because I know it's not a small thing. Um,
I'm sitting on my hands here.
okay, well, you're not sure. Like you have a very good poker face, so I'm just applauding you and saying like I know it's not an easy thing to specify, and especially when the magnitude of the number, quote unquote, seems so big. Like, holy crap, like I'm losing out on potentially 300K a year from not eliminating these patterns. Yes, that could be a lot, but it's one of those times where it's like, okay, well, is this going to go in the tank and like, sorry, in the trunk and like weigh me down, or is it going to be in the tank and fuel me forward? Because like, what a beautiful time to have that realization. Because like, okay, well, we're going into 2024. 2024 could be a year where I step into this and make an additional 300K
Right.
owning everything. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like just how you look at it. So anything that lands for you there, or anything you want to comment on?
No, so I think back to like my family, they've all worked for the phone company, so they've all had union jobs. So that mentality was tried, they tried to impose it upon me, and I always went against the grain, like wanting to be an entrepreneur, wanting to see other things. But, I need to stop dabbling and I just need to jump into it and own it, really.
Yeah, 110%. I think that it's an ownership of 300K. Like if you want to put a number on it, like that's what your ownership of this is like worth to you. So
That gives me chills. Like that seriously gives me chills.
like chills as in like I'm excited or chills as in like I'm shrinking down further.
Oh, no, no, no. Definitely like chills as if I'm excited. Like when I get chills, it feels like the angels are giving me a confirmation.
Okay,
Like,
good.
yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that that's the case. I just wanted to to confirm and verify.
No,
Um,
it sparks a curiosity in me that is competitive within myself that I'm like, okay, now we need to go out there and do this.
yep, yep, 110%. So in I guess given that note, I think it's a good segue. Um, Whenever I have people kind of have these realizations of, oh my God, this is costing me this much in money, or this is costing me this much in time to constantly be doubting myself and not doing the thing, et cetera, et cetera. They have the reaction that you do, which is this excitement of, okay, so all I got to do now is I got to go do it and like push forward. So motivation of that kind generally has a very short half-life. Like it'll be a very high plop and then we kind of revert back to our
Mm.
default. So other than, okay, I got to be more courageous or I got to just work harder, what tools do you actually have to eliminate these root causes of these issues?
So I would say consistency is one of the things that I need to clearly work with. Work ethic is not an issue for me. Taking risk is not an issue for me. Technology is not an issue for me. So it's really just putting together an actionable plan that I can be consistent with, right? And then continue to add to that plan so that I can continue to grow, not only personally, but professionally and expanding my visibility.
Got it. So when you say consistency, do you mean like the behavior of whatever, posting something consistent like that's what you're saying?
So yeah, consistently getting out there. It's just as you said, the ebbs and flows. So I'll, go out there, see a momentum, tackle that momentum, and then it's like it dies off. So I need to stay in a high frequency. I guess that's what I'm saying. I
Hmm.
need to stay in that high frequency.
Okay, perfect. So, and again, I was gonna verify your definitions, I think. So when you say high frequency, meaning like I feel good, I feel energized, I feel enthusiastic about getting out
Absolutely.
there consistently. Okay, perfect. So you also mentioned historically you had issues with consistency. So when you've had issues with consistency, what's the general pattern like for you? Like I do a lot of stuff initially, kind of like that whole I'm motivated and then I drop off. Or is it something else? Like, well, what does that look like for you?
So, because I wasn't 100% committed like I am now, I would do a lot of stuff and then go back to my hourly, go back to my comfort zone.
Hmm.
And hopefully these seeds will germinate and something will blossom. And then I can quit this, 9 to 5 gig or this contract. So that has been pretty consistent in terms of what's happened. And also maybe I would my great grandmother had this old saying is stop turning the soil. Like when you plant
Mm.
something, let the process happen, right? Versus did anything sprout, did anything root, and I have had that in my past where it was a not trusting the process and turning the soil like, okay, that didn't work in 30 days, so I've got to go back to this, or I've got to change this, or um or even, this career coaching thing isn't working, so I've got to go back to another recruiting gig.
Got it. Okay. So there's a lot to break down there, so I'm just going to kind of poke at each individual aspect. So you mentioned like, okay, this didn't like did this for 30 days and it didn't work, so then I had to like revert back to whatever was my bread and butter, whatever is my comfort zone, like you said, turning the soil.
Mhm.
So when that moment comes, like you're at that fork in the road of like, do I continue this or do I go back to the default? What's that internal process like for you? Like, what are you feeling in those moments? What are you thinking in those moments?
I'm probably starting to be anxious and
Hmm.
starting to feel a little bit desperate. And then maybe, looking at some outcomes and some outputs and figuring like how are these going to get resolved?
Okay. And when you say outcomes, meaning like, or results, like just mean like money in the bill, like is money coming in to pay my bills or
Money coming
something?
in, money going out, what's the crisis in the household today, right?
Got it. Okay. So I'm not going to ignore the practicality of like, I need to pay my bills and I need to shift into, this other frequency of owning my visibility and all of the other things. So when you are describing your pattern and relationship to consistency, really it seems like the blocking point is actually the anxiousness and the desperation. Like when that hits, I tend to revert back to what's been historically working. Is that
Right.
accurate? Okay.
Absolutely.
So do you think that this is actually a feeling problem or a thinking problem or a behavior problem?
It's definitely a behavior, and I can see that through the lineage of my mom and dad. So I can
Hmm.
definitely see that. And I think that it is a thinking problem more so than a feeling problem,
Hmm.
overthinking the situation. And again, maybe, from the feeling standpoint, is not trusting the process, not having that faith, which is really not about faith of something working, right? Because I can start digging a hole, and little by little I can dig my way to, wherever. So it's not about that. It's about um putting the value, understanding the value, and feeling confident in what I'm doing. So in those situations, like I'm going to try this career coaching thing again. I'm going to do this. Maybe I undervalue the price point too.
Hmm.
So really, it's so low that people wonder whether there's credibility. Or I am not offering all of what could be offered.
Right. So there's just another additional element just got revealed of like I'm potentially undercharging or underselling. Okay, got it. And listening to you speak about the consistency piece, it seems like really what's missing is a self-trust.
Mhm.
Like if I trusted myself enough to charge the price that I need to make this whole thing work, if I trusted myself enough to be consistent, even though the evidence isn't showing up right now, if I trusted myself enough to show up in my magnificence, then I know I could push through to that, like make 2024 that 300K year. Like, is
Right,
that accurate for
right.
you? Okay. So listening to you, like it seems like really the big inner hurdle you have to overcome is self-trust. Like, you gotta eliminate the pieces and the parts of you that right now don't trust you to be consistent long enough to actually see this thing through. So does that resonate with you or no?
That does. That
Okay.
definitely does.
And what's coming up internally for you when I reflect that back?
It's almost like an aha moment. It's putting it in a perspective that I can break down and that I know that I can tackle. So I thank you for this conversation because I was thinking beyond me and and who I am. But it is about me. And so I was looking, part of what we do in life is we look for those tricks, tips, and hacks, those magic bullets, those magic pills, right? And it's so crazy because as a spiritual practitioner, I know that it's all within me. I
Mhm.
know that it's all within me.
Yeah, I mean that's true for everyone, and I agree with that sentiment as well, that it is all within us. So then the question just becomes, how do we get it out, right? And that's why I asked you, like, okay, well, knowing what's been revealed in this conversation, that really the patterns that are right now affecting me and holding me back from that 300K years, like we said, the fear of success, the visibility, the playing small, the prejudging, the undercharging, like knowing that those are the patterns that are actually the root cause of all of the ways that I don't show up. I'm like, okay, well, what's your plan for actually dealing with that? Right. And where your brain defaulted to was, well, you know what, if I just had a plan of action for being consistent, like then that would be enough. And then when we poke and prod into that, it was like, well, historically, consistency has been the one thing that's always been lacking. It's always been where a part of you
Mhm.
drops the ball. So of course, the part that self-sabotage is the part that's really missing self-trust, right? Because
Right.
self-trust is the part that would get you enough consistency. Self-trust is the part that would help you heal all of the visibility, the fear, success, etc. So it's like that's the actual linchpin. And you can't solve self-trust with, a productivity hack, like you said, or a productivity system or a plan of action. Those are
Right.
the byproducts of really eliminating the emotional aspects. So what lands for you with all of that?
So it's interesting that we broke it down to self-trust because going back to self-worth and being a high school dropout, right? And then being in front of all of these different Ivy League people and professionals and so forth. Even though I felt like I'm doing this, I was shivering inside, like they're going to find out who I am. Now, thinking about self trust and self worth, I think that they are in partnership.
Hmm.
So uh, I can see where I can trust Zena Contreras, right? So if I take it a step further, I now need to believe that Zena Contreras is worth that $300,000. Like I can work 80 hours a week and make $300,000 as a recruiter, but then I'm trading my time for compensation. Now I'm trading my knowledge capacity and the value that I bring for the desired compensation or whatever it is, right? So that's where I think that I need to really focus on. I can trust myself, and I'm glad that you brought that up. But for me, what resonates and what that spoke to was self-worth.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, whatever they do overlap even in
Right.
definition, so I'm all for it. And whatever lands for you the most is the part that's
Yeah.
relevant. So yeah, I think they go hand in hand, right? Like if I feel worthy of it, I'm gonna trust myself to make it happen. If I don't, I'm not gonna. So you know what I mean? Like it's a tomato situation, and I'm glad that that landed for you, because yeah, I think that is like it's a through line that goes across everything that you've mentioned today, right? And healing that, eliminating that pattern,
Right.
that really opens a door for a 300K year for you in 2024, which is a very exciting thing to do. So I'm happy for you in that way. Um, I know, like, okay, there's obviously a lot of stuff we can go through. We can work through healing all of this, busting the beliefs around it, discharging the emotions around it, etc. I mean, I wish I could do all of that in one, podcast session, but I can't. But as far as just like mapping out exactly where you're at right now, what's standing in your way, like, does this feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
Um, I mean, I don't ever want to say something feels complete because I think that, there are layers within those sub layers,
Hmm.
but I definitely feel very good about this conversation. Like I feel that at least there is in my mind there are some things that I have accomplished that I can give myself credit for, and there are some things that I need to let go. And self-worth really wasn't one that I was thinking of. So now that it's in the forefront, I can work on, yeah, that feels digestible. Does that make sense?
Yep,
That does feel
100%.
digestible.
Beautiful. Well, love it. So, yeah, I think in that case, that's actually a good place to move us into a close. So, number one, I mean, thank you for
Thank
allowing
you.
yourself to be witnessed in this way, especially for somebody with the visibility blocks. That's going to be a big thing. So, again, I want to acknowledge you once more for that. And then two, if you can just close us off by letting, everybody know who's the best person to find you, where can they find you? Floor is yours for that.
Absolutely. First of all, I just thank you so very much for what it is that you do, and the mind shift that you help people to understand in this short process. So I'm Zena Contreras. You can find me on careercoachingcloud.com, or you can look for me in the social media platforms as Coach Zena.
Love it. Well, we will include all of that in the show notes as always. And Zena, thank you very much for being on and for everybody else listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Blessings. Thank you so very much.